Thank you for meeting with me, Lindsay. I'm so happy you're here. And this is the first time that we're catching up in the new year. So
It
this
is.
is, I
So
feel like, yeah, this is like a special gathering. Oh, sorry.
happy
Were
New
you going to say something?
Year. Just Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yes. And I think I've read for you once or twice before in the
You
past,
have.
but
Yeah.
it's an honor to get to read for you again. Do you have a specific question or theme that you want to explore today?
So I think one of the things that's really been coming up for me is really around the idea that I need to rest more. And so trying to
Mhm.
kind of figure out ways to have more periods of restoration, but also,
Mm,
I don't do a lot of specific goal setting for the year
okay.
necessarily, but I choose a word every year, and the word that I've chosen is
Mm.
abundance. And so I
Ooh.
guess really kind of hoping to move from a scarcity mindset in some ways to a more abundance mindset and abundance of love, joy, happiness, all the things. And so I guess the question is, how can I invite more maybe abundance and also restoration into my life?
I love that. Okay, give me 1 second and then we can get started. I just realized that my microphone
Switch. Okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's yes.
Okay. Is there a difference in the
I like
sound
that better.
quality?
Yes, it is actually.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I was like, let's switch it up. Okay. All right. And we're back with my new microphone sound. Okay. Abundance is one theme, and then rest and restoration is the other one. So let's focus on the first one. You mentioned rest. Is there a certain question, or should we just say, how can Lindsay find more rest this year? Or, like, do you have a specific leading question you want us to work with?
I think really the question might be in terms of the lack of rest for me, and restoration really centers around not really having kind of like that balance with my professional work. And so really around
Okay.
how can I have a better work relationship where working environment and hours that align more with my what I want for my life.
I love that. Please excuse the sirens that you probably hear in the
I don't
background.
hear them.
Okay. Oh, wow, that's perfect. Okay. Because tarot, it's like you have to be specific, but not too specific. I hear what you're going for. So I'm just going to say, how can Lindsay find a good work-life balance? And I know that's an oversimplification of what you just asked for, but that may be the best way for us to kind of see what the tarot has in store, and open a wide enough window for it. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Dear universe, I am here with Lindsay. We ask for love, light, and guidance. Any spiritual guides that she may want to call upon, or spiritual protection, to be here in this circle with us. Do you have any guidance for Lindsay on work-life balance for her as she continues to prioritize rest and recovery this year? Okay. Just going to pull some cards to the side for you. Okay. This is very interesting. What is your zodiac, by the way? Your
I am
astrology zodiac?
Cancer moon. I'm sorry, Cancer sun.
Okay, Cancer Sun.
And Leo moon and Sagittarius rising. Is that correct? Yeah.
Ooh, okay. This is a very interesting combo for you. Ooh, it's very spicy and interesting for me because you're a water sign by nature, but then at the same time, your Leo is like, no, we're here for the show and we are the show. Like, so this is very interesting. Okay, I'm surprised I never asked you this earlier. Maybe I haven't, I forgot. Okay, it's not showing up all in the cards, but sometimes it does show up. And so that's why I always like to ask the person.
Sure.
What is showing up in the cards is at the bottom of the card or the deck is the Page of Swords showing up in reverse. It looks, some of this is past energy. I think the cards are going to tell us a little bit about where you've been and where you are now, and then we can use that then to interpret their advice for how you want to move forward, especially when it comes to rest and recovery. So if you see me looking down, it's just looking at the cards. You've had to do a lot of rushed work. and
Mhm.
you've had to be very speedy. And that's probably why now you are feeling the need to actually extend grace to yourself and your body and to recover. I think a lot of this has to do with what you are recovering from. One of those things is people were forcing you to work very quickly with a lot of thought. So the swords right here, what he's holding up symbolically in the tarot, it represents somebody who's using their mind a lot to strategize, to write, to communicate. And so I think this is probably hinting at the kind of work you were doing before. I like to do tarot as if I don't know the person, even if I know them very well. So I know some of what's happened in your life, but I still describe it as if I don't, right? And so I know you did have a very busy last year, right? Like this is quick communication, rapid, like it's like what I would call crisis response or rapid response in like the world of comms, right? In media, where it's just boom, boom, boom. Lindsay, tell us what to do. Okay, go over here and fix it over there. And like it's kind of very much like the shot heard around the world. Paul Revere, like if you go back to that story and in time, it's like they needed somebody who could communicate, who can use the horses to go very quickly, and to be the one person that can be counted on in the middle of the night to get something done. And it's as if the cards are saying that was you. You had to play that very unique role. Does that feel true to you, or does that not resonate?
Well, very much
Okay.
so, yes.
Okay, very much so. Yeah. Okay. Just want to double check before I dive down the next 6 cards. In case like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So what had happened was, and I say it like that, there was a tower moment first. So once upon a time, a lot of things were falling out the window. The tower card is a card that kind of represents destruction or warnings and cautionary signs of destruction. Something had happened within either this group's context or right before it, where you were like, this is, excuse my French, but a shit show. Things weren't looking very good. Things weren't feeling very hot, and everybody was falling out of the windows, metaphorically. Whatever the situation was, you were like, I'm out of here. I don't like this, which is good. And what was happening here, I think, is it was every man for themselves. Nobody was supporting like the other people around them, and that's why there were no safety nets when everybody fell out with this fallout. And that's why where you went next, you were seeking cooperation and partnership, especially like equal partnership. Like everybody should be showing up and putting their equal amount of energy, resources, etc., attention, because you're like, I'm not going to have this happen. Like if I can avoid it, I never want to go back to this again. So you were looking for signs to seize the day, to seize the moment with this Ace of Swords. And I feel like you got glimpses of it, but it was like a ghost that haunted you, where you're like, your presence is here, but I can't reach for you yet. And that then left you kind of feeling like, I don't have all the answers that I thought I would have. It may have been that you seized the moment and then you were like, wait a second, something's so disconnected. Like I still don't have all the answers and I still have to be making these foggy decisions. And what the cards are telling me about who you are, again, as if I don't know you, it's that you like clarity. And you were like, what's going on here? Why is there a lack of clarity even after I've pushed for so much clarification and answers and thoroughness? And so at first it was tough, but I think you finally made a call and you made a big decision that then changed the way that you were working, which led to a victory, a very personal victory, maybe a professional victory. This normally would be professional because of the wands, but for you, I think there was something about a personal conquest. Like you showed something to yourself that you hadn't seen from yourself in some time. It's like if somebody was like an Olympic gymnast and then they hadn't been out on the floor in some time doing a routine, and suddenly they shocked themselves with how good they were in the process. It's something like that happened to you, where other people may have seen that triumph in the outside, but it was more of a personal victory for yourself. Like, oh, look at that, I did that, which is really helpful. So this seems like it's all building up to a scenario, but really it's focused on the Fool card, the beginner's mindset. So if that was the past of you had to really work through a group situation that wasn't very good for you, you found yourself in a new one, or right now you're currently in a season of trying to manifest a new group situation that is going to be full of, again, that equality and equity piece right there, where everybody is being mindful, putting their best foot forward. There's still clarity that you're working towards, but there's enough victory that you are like, I can keep on going. I'm gonna stay on the horse and stay on my grind, so to say. Sorry, I'm mixing lots of metaphors and lines right there. But ultimately, where this is landing you in terms of rest and recovery is rest and recover so that you can start again. This beginner's mindset talks about somebody who is excited about the future. So if you feel like you're so physically exhausted and too tired to want to just like live life joyously, like this fool right here, his name is a fool. He's not actually a fool. Think of him as like the person who's the willing newbie. Like, I'm ready to learn and learn again. I want to be a student of the world. I'm always ready to be a go-getter and to try and try again. Like, he's showing up as who you are in a good way to represent that. Like, you're never afraid to try. Even you embrace the idea of failure because it means it leads you to learnings, and you understand that failure as an action doesn't, or an outcome doesn't mean that it's a failure as being a human or a person, or that indicates that you have low value as a person. And so all this to say, the cards are kind of saying, Lindsay, if you want to start again, and you want to maybe restart this group team project or keep on going, the only way to do that first is to make sure you are well rested enough before you go ahead and keep going in your journey, because this is actually going to be a long journey ahead for you, and it's probably actually going to be a very good journey for you. But if you're not well rested, then you're going to get tired too soon. So it's kind of that like short-term loss for a long-term gain. Rest first, recuperate so that you can actually really get going. I will say, I'm sorry that I may have spent too long describing the past, but so many of the cards wanted to tell me about your past for some reason. So I had to tell you what I saw, just in case any of that clicked inside your mind for you. But I will say part of this too is some of this is probably very much a mental battle. Like, you right now probably don't have a lot of physical barriers, but it's all the mental barriers in the mind, the limiting beliefs that we may set upon ourselves that block us from making progress. And so before you get started on this journey, make sure that you're not carrying extra luggage, all that invisible luggage of, when I wake up in the morning, I have 10 things I want to say that are all negative self-talk, full of negative self-talk. Then I get on with my day, then I get on with the journey. Well, if you start your journey with your first foot forward, or really your first foot backwards, right, in a lot of like negative vibes, then you're not going to really be going forward as quickly as you can. So take off that weight, that excess weight, and let it go so that you can really have a good journey. And then the same thing is true for that physical rest that you need to actually feel revived and excited and ready to go. I think I'm going to start talking in circles, so I will pause here. Questions, comments?
I guess one thing I'm curious about is when you mentioned, like, this is going to be a long journey, maybe what that means, like a long journey in terms of like this exploration of what work looks like for me,
Yeah,
how to do this, or if
let's,
it means
yeah,
once I find
let's
it.
actually. Oh, sorry, I didn't
No,
mean
no,
to
no,
knock
no.
over you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna grab from a different deck to see,
Mhm.
but what I will tell you about the Fool is the Fool becomes the Magician. So there are two cards. You can look them up later. I'm just gonna shuffle really quickly. The Fool is like the newbie student who's starting at the bottom, and then the Magician is like the wise old teacher, like Harry Potter versus Dumbledore. Somebody who has a lot of promise but is starting out versus like the grand teacher who knows everything and it can mentor the person. But the thing is, every Dumbledore started first as a Hermione or a Harry Potter or a Ron or a Neville, right? Like somebody who's, they didn't know all the answers either. So how did they get the answers? They had to take a long journey to learn discernment, to learn their skills and to cultivate those skills over time, and to curate their interests and to figure out, who do I trust to walk with me along this journey? And so that's what I mean by the long journey. It may not even be a rocky journey, but it's more about saying, have the patience to build the empire that you want to build, because the cards are acknowledging, like, Lindsay, you don't want to be somebody who only knows how to do one thing, right? Like a jack of all trades or something, or a Jane of all trades, so to say. Like, you're not trying to be this overly general generalist, you're trying to be a specialist with many specialties. And because of that part, then you actually have to learn how to be specialized in each specialty, which is going to take time. So that's why it's a long road, because you're going to collect all these separate skills before you actually become like the skilled magician who has all the tricks up their sleeves, who has all the powers, the potions, the, whatever it may be, at their table. And so why I talk about this way, both the long road and like the, oh, you're going to become the magician, is because when you look at the traditional magician card, if you're on your laptop right now, you can actually look it up on Google, look up like the magician tarot card. And then what you will find is this person who has a table. He has like a wand in his hand, and then at his table, he has 4 elements on his table. It's a pentacle, a wand, a cup, and then a sword. And those represent the 4 symbols that you see throughout tarot. And the thing is, those represent air, water, fire, and what am I missing? Coins. And all of those, it's kind of like Pokemon, you got to catch them all, but they represent different kinds of ways of thinking, learning, and being. Water represents emotions, having high EQ, but you can't just have high EQ if you want to lead at the end of the day. You need to also have high IQ, and the sword represents IQ. So you have EQ with the cup, the sword with the IQ, but then you need ambition and drive, and that is having the wands. And then the last one with the pentacles, you still need money, you still need resources and capital. And maybe your resources aren't just money, but it's social capital, right? But it's like most people, when you meet them, they only have 1 or 2 core strengths. Maybe they have very high EQ, but they have no ability to understand fiscal business know-how, right? But for you, the universe is saying, we see that you are destined to want to learn and to become very good at learning and being proficient at all 4 of these kinds of intellect or intellectual toolkit, tools, skills, or however you want to, categories. Let's just say they're categories. So for you, it's going to take a long time because you're going to try to specialize in learning all 4 of these. So right now in your life, if you want additional advice, I am going to pull from the cards, but just of what I said, think about, so where am I already very strong right now? Am I already naturally ambitious and courageous, like the swords, or I mean, like the wands? Am I already do I already have a lot of high IQ? Like I'm very smart. I'm a very learned human, so to say, learned human, very naturally curious and like intuitive. Or do I have high EQ? Am I somebody who's very emotionally available and open and perceptive? And then the last one, am I very resourceful? If you feel like there are any, it's not so much even weaknesses, but just there's a limitation, a shortage of knowledge in any of these areas, that's probably what you need to focus on next up. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure that that's the general advice of the cards and what they're trying to say. And the thing with you is I get the sense that even though the Fool card was there, it was just signaling the new beginning of you learning one of those categories. It wasn't saying Lindsay's a blank canvas. She's never learned anything in her life and she needs to learn all 4, right? And so you can probably already have a natural sense of where you are leaning or what you want more. From what I remember, you said you were Cancer already naturally. So you're probably already high EQ. You have Leo in you, which is the wand. So a lot of courage, bravery, and ambition. You kind of have this ability to be very resilient and with a lot of grit, no matter what. You never give up. People try to try you and then they realize that they'll fail in the process because you're just next level. And then you said Sagittarius. So that's even more fire. So more of that fiery, like, don't mess with me. So now, not to say that you don't have high IQ, but because that's not one of your natural zodiacs, at least in your chart for those 3 main ones, maybe you need to learn something new. That said, I know you are somebody who is so smart and you're always learning new things. So I think you're already fine with that. So maybe the last one that you need to work on is Pentacles, which also didn't show up in those first 3 most dominant ones in your zodiac. So Pentacles is coins. Pentacle/coins is money, and it's the one about learning how to be more resourceful. In other words, like, how can I make more pipelines of money for myself? How can I have more of like a business acumen, and how I present myself, how I pitch for my business or my services and that kind of stuff, just like being very smart about that. And then also, how can okay, so I know those things. I already studied how to do business. Now it's, can I put it in action? And then also, how do I think more strategically about scaling my capital and growing it over time? Because for you, again, it's probably not that you're starting all the way from the bottom. It's that like, okay, so you have a certain level of acumen already. how do you build on that? How do you keep growing that? Does that make sense, and does that resonate? It's okay if it doesn't, because I
It
definitely went on a long
No,
tangent.
it definitely does. And even with the like
Okay.
the IQ piece, I think there's like the
Mm,
question that's kind of been circulating with me is that like I know
mm,
there's gaps for me and like the stuff
mm.
that I want to do in learning and still trying to figure out what is it that I don't know yet. And like so
Yeah.
that's something I've really been exploring. Like, okay, I
Mhm.
know that I know what I know, but what's the other thing
Yeah.
I'm not sure about yet? Or and I'm trying to figure out what is it that I don't know because I know there
Mhm.
are those gaps and trying to fill those.
Yeah.
And then the business acumen piece, I think, is something that has just been weighing on me. Also, with
Yeah.
kind of the time too, is like trying to, there's the work and then there's the business of the work. And so spending so much of
Mhm.
my time on
Steps,
the
steps,
work
steps. Mhm.
that like the business of the work really kind of like takes a second, a
Yeah.
backseat, not like in the trunk. And then, kind of like digging my nails in that and trying to figure that out, you know, always kind of like when I have to, as
Mhm.
opposed to like having systems
Mhm.
or understanding so that like when things come up, it's not a race to figure out like, okay, what do I do? How do I do this? How do I, explore
Mhm.
all these things right when I need to? So both of them
Yeah.
really resonate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing it and being so open. And if you do want me to cut any of this out in the final YouTube clip, please let me know, just because you are
Oh,
really
sure.
sharing deeply. And if you're like, no, Pim, we're good, then we're good, and I
We're
can keep it
good.
all in there. Okay. Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Lindsay. Like it's very refreshing, right? Like you have to be very vulnerable to do this kind of work. So I appreciate you fully showing up in all the ways. Yeah, and I will say, yeah, that's the feeling that I got intuitively, and then as we talked, and as we saw the cards, and I learned about your zodiac, like, so it's good to know that that does resonate with you. And the good news, I promise I'll get to the cards. So the good news in terms of that long journey is that this is your destiny, is for you to live a long life and to explore with curiosity. The cards are saying, like, congratulations, you don't have to learn all of this tomorrow. Because wouldn't that almost be worse? It's like, cram it all into your little brain right now, Lindsay. You got to do it tomorrow, right? It's more like you're learning along the way. So don't over stress. It will come with you. It will, like with time, you will be prolific in all things. So don't stress, and just continue to do what you're currently doing, which is to be that easy breezy fool card, quote unquote fool. And in the fool, going back to where I started, it's about somebody who embraces the fact that they don't know everything, and then who like it feels cheerful about that, like, yay, I don't have all the answers, I can go on this journey, I'm going to learn. Like, it's good to have that first day attitude of like, yep, I'm jolly on the road, and I can't wait to run into so and so who can teach me different things, rather than, oh, I'm a know-it-all and nothing and no one can help me. That's actually a very scarcity based mindset. But to have the fool's mindset, the beginner's mindset, is to have an abundance mindset. Abundance, to really say, there's so many opportunities for me to learn, and as I learn, I can multiply and what is it, not a compound, have compound growth in my learnings and in my earnings as a result of this ability to have this abundance mindset. So it's all good, it will all work together. Before we do the abundance mindset or like abundance manifestation of the year, you had kind of like a question, or you were starting to lead me towards a question related to like, but what do I really do, or what's next career wise? So let me know, is there a specific question you want me to ask the cards related to that?
I think I'm kind of in a position right now where I'm like, am I
Mm,
on the right path now? Because
okay. All
part of
right.
me is, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I am. And then
Okay.
so it's really, am I on the right path, or is this talk in the back, like, pivot,
Yeah.
that right? Should I be pivoting? Should I be staying on this path? Should I just
Okay.
wait and see?
Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to even pull that out,
Yeah,
but I will try. And I say that only because sometimes I found that tarot is best for reflecting on the past or the present. It doesn't always pull the future, but
sure.
that doesn't mean we can't try. And that's just like my own, like, I think every tarot reader has their superpower. So I know where my limitations are, and that's not an abundance mindset. That's just my real talk of like, I know where my strengths
Sure.
are. So I will still pull, and we will see. And then if anything, I have a different divination tool that I can grab to give us a yes or no. But for now, let's stay here. Dear universe, I am here with Lindsay. I ask for love, guidance, and protection. Is Lindsay on the right path? Yes or no? Is she on the right path? The cards didn't want to go in, so I think these are the ones that want to speak to you.
Sure.
I went and I asked the cards before I saw you. I was like, okay, which deck? I have around like 12 to 13 decks, and I was like, which one of you wants to come up for Lindsay? And this deck, the Dolly deck, wanted to come up for you. So, this is funny. It gives you an answer to your first question,
Sure.
not your second question. It basically said, we acknowledge you want to make a lot of money and get a lot of opportunities. This is the Page of Coins. However, we acknowledge also that you are in a toss-up between two situations. This is kind of like, you're like, is it a yes or is it a no? Tell me. Instead of the cards telling you the answer, they said, first, slow down, dear child. So these two cards right here, let me make sure that I'm counting this correctly. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yeah, it's kind of hard. This is like Dolly's deck is very abstract, and so it's hard to count sometimes with all these cards or all these wands. With these wands, each number means something else. So with these, I can, and then let me count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Okay, I thought so. So this is actually the 9 and 10 of wands, and both of them have a very similar meaning. Again, it would mean a completely different thing if it was 8 of wands. So that's why I was like, let me make sure before I tell you the wrong thing. This is the 9 and 10 of wands, and they both say the same thing, which is as much as you want to know the yes or no of life, and as much as you want to just have the guarantee of resources and money, you need to take care of your body. So it goes full circle. That sounds like it kind of answers your first question. It's not about the next path. It's about how can you prepare your body to be ready for that next path. I saw that subtle face muscle like right there, right? Yeah, like and why it's so important is because the cards are actually saying, here is a kind cautionary warning for you, which is to say we don't want your body to break down, and you don't either. So before you either get overly stressed or physically exhausted from where you currently are right now, let work take a temporary backseat. You use that example. If it's not all the way in the trunk, it's just in the back seat, and put your health in the front seat with you in the passenger seat, or even in the driver's seat. Because right now what the cards are saying twice to me is Lindsay's feeling physically overwhelmed and exhausted, and to the point where she's starting to hurt herself in ways that she never would have before. This may not be literal hurt, but it could just be like, oh, she keeps staying up every night. And at some point, in terms of like health stats, I think they say people who don't get enough sleep actually lose years on their lifespan just because of that. So it's things like that where indirectly you may not have, knock on wood, a health crisis in the moment, but you may just be indirectly still impacting the quality of life that you could have in the short term or long term. So the cards are just saying like, we don't want this, and we just want to flag it to you that if you keep going on this pathway of only prioritizing your career and your money first, you may lose out physically. They're also saying that, especially, I know they look the same, but with this one, with all of this, all the green swords or wands, they're saying she's also starting to work harder, not smarter, as opposed to smarter, not harder, because she's so physically overwhelmed and tapped out that anytime a new request comes in, she doesn't think about saying yes or no, she just does it. Or she doesn't think about the most strategic way to approach that request because she's just too busy trying to just get things done. It's like playing whack-a-mole. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm so exhausted. Why am I so exhausted? And I was like, well, actually, at 5 p.m. when you got that one request that took you down this one rabbit hole for 3 hours, you could have actually said no, and it would have bought you back 3 hours of rest. But because sometimes we get into these like robotic moments of being in the machine, we forget. And so these cards are just saying like, Lindsay, we care about you. We want you to realize that like you're so capable. If anything, you're overly capable. And that's almost your problem, is being too capable. So chillax a bit first and take care of your body, because whenever you're ready to figure out like what's next for me, it will present itself. But right now, what's presenting itself is the need to put your health at the forefront. So I'm sorry that wasn't a very direct answer.
Oh, no, I think it was,
but-
though.
Was it? Okay. sometimes it's like that, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for extending grace back to the cards. And that's the funny thing is like sometimes they really will. I always think it's like they're like the cards are like your sassy auntie who taps you on the wrist. It's not abuse, but it's, why'd you do
Exactly.
that? Right. You know, it's yeah. And so that's how the cards are. So yeah. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes people will be like, give me a love reading, and it becomes a work reading. And I'm like, but that's really what they thought you need to hear first. So it is what it is sometimes in that way. Okay, do you want to still stay on the career track, or do you want to move towards talking about abundance in life?
Let's move on, I think. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I got what I
Okay,
needed about career.
awesome. I'm gonna like just roll over this way for a second. Okay. And back again, grabbing another deck of cards. Ooh, these cards are like they're happy to see you. I can feel their energy. They're very peppy right now. They're like, ooh, choose us. Okay. Okay, so abundance was the big theme. How do you want me to shape this question?
Let's see. I don't know. I guess maybe I was going to frame it in how can I invite more abundance in my life? I'm not sure if that's the
Oh,
right framing
okay.
for like a good
Okay. I
question, but
like
that's
that.
the first that came to me.
Okay, but let's go with your gut. Your intuition knows best. And I wouldn't have come up with that question. So that's why I was like, let me check in with Lindsay.
Yeah.
How can Lindsay find more abundance in her life or manifest more abundance? Is that
Yes, maybe like inviting. How can I invite it or manifest it better in my
okay?
experience? Yeah.
Okay. All right. The universe, I'm here with Lindsay. And we just want to know, how can she continue to invite abundance into her life and manifest more abundance into her life in all ways? How can Lindsay invite abundance into her life? Ooh, this is a good card to get. The Emperor. The Emperor is a king of all kings. He has a lot of power, a lot of influence. And also because you're a Leo, this isn't necessarily the card of Leo, but it's definitely like a cousin of the Leo card in the deck. The Leo card is actually this card right here, the Strength card with this lion, Leo lion.
Oh,
But the lion roars, and then the emperor has his staff. He has his, like in all the old stories, the king has his loud booming voice, the emperor, right? Like, and everyone hears it from afar. And the cards are encouraging you to bring out your inner emperor. They don't care about gender norms and pronouns. So they're just like, Lindsay, you're not just the queen of queens, you're the king of kings. And so it's asking you to call out your divine masculine energy for this abundance. In a way, when we think of money traditionally, unfortunately, men are usually the ones that we think of, right? Like who are like the bank tellers, and the purse keepers, so to say, like the people who really like are the generous ones, or the ones who have capital and access to power and legacy. So that's why the cards are saying, like, bring out your inner emperor, because we're not in old times anymore, we're in modern times. And it's not just the men who can earn money or who have power. So it's kind of like, Lindsay, give yourself permission to be the emperor, the king of all kings, and the king of all kingdoms. Now, the other important thing that I will say about the emperor is he represents the person with the most power in the entire tarot deck. So this is really saying, like, allow yourself to be and empower yourself to be the most powerful of them all, and really embrace that, and use it with the power of good, because of course it's with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And I'm not worried about you. I know that that's who you are. You believe in equity, so you're not going to be somebody who wouldn't be mindful about how you rule and how you lead. But that card still comes with that kind little warning to say, think about that. I'm going to grab 6 more cards for you. At the bottom of the deck, we have the 7 of Cups. This came up actually in your first reading, where I was saying, oh, you're thinking a lot about the kinds of questions in your life, or making decisions about which way to go. And then I was like, oh, I think you've made a call. This card is kind of coming back to that. It looks like when it comes to abundance, it's almost like there's a part of you that may feel overwhelmed by how much abundance may come your way, actually, or like the abundance of opportunities or chances to do different things. And so it'll kind of be up to you to decide. But this just acknowledges that sometimes it can almost be difficult to have so much abundance in your life because you can be very easily distracted, not in a bad way necessarily, but it's kind of like analysis paralysis, because it's like, well, I could go that way, I could go this way, wow, so and so offered me this, but then that other person offered me that, so what do I do? So it's not all bad, it's just you still have to make the call. So the cards are just saying, like, make that call though, like you do have to have final say, but just remember, like, you are protected in whatever it is that you do, and you have to believe that you are worthy of manifesting these valuable opportunities, and that you are more than enough, that you have the right to take and claim whatever it is that you want. So there's a lot of energy in this one card that's coming out, like that, but the cards are trying to tell you all of that right now. And I would say sevens in general, sometimes they represent a lot of chaos in the tarot. And so it's not that you're going to have a really tough, chaotic year in 2023 per se, but it's that internally you may feel a little chaotic because you're going to have to make a lot of decisions this year, but these decisions are tied to abundance, so it's not all bad. Yeah, I'm trying to like manage your
I think that's
expectations.
like how my anxiety kind of
Yeah.
manifests, especially with
Okay.
like indecision. And so I know
Mm,
that like the chaotic energy I feel is typically when
yeah.
I'm not making a decision, where I'm just kind of
Yeah.
like vacillating
That's
between
what this
I don't
is.
know, I don't know, I don't
Mhm.
know. And so that's
Yeah.
a lot.
Okay, yeah. And I was also going to say, this is your suit. This is water. Anytime you see cups in water in tarot, that's you as a Cancer sign. And yeah, so that it kind of makes sense. And that maybe the final thing I'll say about this before I move on is water signs, if you're like the typical classic water sign, this is definitely a little stereotyping, so it may not be true, but water signs feel before they think. And that's just the way that they are. So that's why it's hard sometimes to make decisions, because you have to feel it out. You have to think about how it makes you feel and how it will make you feel in the future. And sometimes you just can't rush the process. And then that's part of the indecision and the back and forth. So I just wanted to talk about that and name that in case that's how you feel. But also, maybe before I even move on, the Emperor is more like a fire sign. The Emperor is the Aries card, and Aries is like a cousin of Leo. So all this is to say, that's why the cards are telling you lean into your divine masculine side that is more fiery and full of like bravado, and saying like, I know how to make that call, and now I'm going to have that booming voice that says, this is my truth, I'm sticking with it, I'm moving here. Versus water, which can feel a little bit more feminine and fluid and kind of like easygoing, free flowing, whereas this is more rigid, but not in a bad way. So that's why the cards are saying, just balance yourself out and integrate. Like, what would it be like if you lived a life where you could be very fluid and agile, like this water sign energy, or a life where you can also do that, but also be the person who makes the call, like the Emperor. And it's more about the integration and the rebalancing of that, not so much that you can only be one way or the other. It's more about integrate these two so that you know when you need a toggle in either direction. And that's really how you will also become the Emperor, because the Emperor does know how to be both of those things. Okay, that's it. I have more cards. Oh, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No, just
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. So with the other cards right here, I'll try to go a little bit quicker because I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. Give me one moment just to count all these pieces. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. Oh, I could have read the Roman numeral for that one. I didn't think about that. Okay. Okay. The cards kind of tell a pretty straightforward story. Your predicament in life and why you're having some struggles with making decisions. I'm just looking down because I'm looking at the cards. It has more to do, I think, with the past and a certain debate that either you're having with yourself or with somebody else. But it's not about obstacles. So what I mean by that is something that haunts you, I think, a bit is that this 5 of Pentacles came up. This is about loss. This is about people who have suffered. And usually this is more about being conscious of the fact that you could suffer in the future, but it's only because you watched someone else suffer in the past. This is, I think of this like the divorce card, like when a child has watched their parents go through a divorce, and then because they are so marked by that, they choose to never get married. Or it's like when somebody has seen somebody else get bankrupt and they say, I will never have my own business because I never want to go through that experience. But actually, they would be the best business person ever if they just got over that limiting belief. And so this card represents a lot of past traumas, ghosts of the past that may make you hold yourself back from certain dreams or taking certain actions in relationships because of worries and a little bit of that scarcity mindset. So since we talked about abundance originally, this is kind of reminding you, like, if you want to attract more abundance into your life, you have to stop thinking about your worries and your fears of the past, or that the past will recreate itself again. Some other cards that kind of talk about that include this Eight of Swords card right here. This is all about the mental battles that you have to fight, like just the mental battlefield in your mind, and how you have to remember, like, sometimes we keep fighting a certain battle because somebody else invited us to the fight and then they abandoned the fight, but because we're so used to fighting, we just keep on fighting, and we may even end up fighting somebody else or choosing to start more wars with totally unrelated people or things, just because we are in fighting mode and we don't know how to get out of that mentality. Sometimes it's not the aggression towards the outside, it's just the continued inner aggression or the inability to heal and allow yourself to be a healed person, and then a recovered person who's no longer thinking about what it is that you needed to heal from. It is more about saying, like, guess what? I don't even have to call myself a victim. I can live a 2.0 life with none of that. I saw you breathing deeply. You don't have to explain, but I would just say, I think this card hit you where you needed to hear it, like, so I'm going to stop there for a moment with this card. But maybe the last thing I'll say is just be soft and gentle with yourself, and be kind to yourself and compassionate, and allow the physical healing that the other cards are talking about with exhaustion. Allow these two things to coexist, like the healing journey of the internal mind and the heart and the soul and the spirit, along with the physical healing of the exhaustion. And if you can allow those two things to work at the same time, I think it will work in your favor for that abundance. I mean, that's just like a very natural thing. I don't even need to say that out loud, right? Like, that's just like the braids of, like spirituality, physical health, mental health, emotional health, like all those things, they get stronger together. Okay, one card that's interesting is this is a Six of Coins, and what this represents is a card of generosity, a card of care, but also it usually comes with a scale. The picture usually has a scale in it, and it's a scale of justice. And so what it represents is, when are you being too giving, and when are you not, or when are you too giving to others, and when are you asking too much of others? Because sometimes in life, it's a very imbalanced thing. Sometimes we lean on others too much, sometimes others lean on us too much, and we let them, as my uncle would say, you let them bite you once, they come back and bite you 5 times, right? And so it's kind of like figuring out, right, like, what is that balance between being generous for others and then allowing others to be generous to yourself, but never overdoing it. But when I see this paired up together, I have this feeling that this is also about an internal worry. I may be wrong, and you don't have to say anything on this recording, but some of this may be that you have watched others be so giving that it has haunted you, and it's not that you are being greedy or selfish, but you're just being protective of yourself and your resources or other resources around you, because you don't want to see the past get repeated again. This could maybe be like somebody where, let's say, there's an extended family friend who has always asked the family for extra support. And over the years, a certain uncle has always looked the other way and helped them, even when they don't actually do, like, they're not following through. Like, maybe they're like, can I use this money for X? Or I'm going to definitely use this money for X. And then they never actually do. And you're like, look at them. They're just wasting all these, my uncle's capital, his help, his support, they're taking advantage of him. So then for you, you're like, well, if they ever come to me for help, it's not that I'm trying to be mean, but I don't think I'm actually helping them. I think I'm enabling them, right? And you don't want to become an enabler. And so metaphorically, take what I just said there, put it into your own universe and framework that works for you personally. This may be more about that, of like the stain of the past making you feel like, do I really want to commit to that and being generous in that way because I've seen it be harmful? Or do I really want to lean on someone, if it's the other way, right? Lean on someone because I've seen it when it's been bad and I don't want to be like that. But the thing is, like, you're not like that. You are you. You are Lindsay. So just kind of remember that at the same time. You can navigate the world in the present. You don't have to navigate the present day based off of the structures of the past, based off of the routines of the past, based off of the norms, the customs, or the old dynamics and relationships of the past. However, that hits you where it needs to, if it does in any way, just keep that in mind. Because I think that's actually what is stopping you, and kind of like, it's like a hemorrhaging situation. What's stopping you from being able to get more abundance is actually some sort of a worry to do with the past and how money, resources, generosity has shown up in your past life or family life or a larger group situation. I think a lot of this was you were watching and feeling powerless in one situation, and now you are in power, but now it's kind of like, so what do you do with your power? Or with your free agency? I don't know if that is correct, but that's just a sense I'm getting from the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, this feels very personal. And so I want to be protective of you. And I'll say, you don't need to share. You can always share after the recording is off if you want to say anything, but I just don't want you to feel like you need to contextualize. Because I feel like that wouldn't be fair to you, unless you really do want to say something. The final two cards here, that it's kind of interesting. It's the Knight of Swords and the Queen of Swords. They're probably related because it's they come from the same set, the swords right here, the same suit. I think there's a conversation happening between somebody who's either a little younger in age or younger in spirit, this Knight of Swords versus this Queen of Swords. Somebody, like the Knight is more like the prince, the son, somebody who's a little bit younger, and then somebody who's a little bit older. And they're having a conversation and maybe even a battle of intellect and wisdom right now, and intuition. I get the feeling that neither of them are wrong, but both of them are kind of like, they're very dedicated to their point of view. They're not going to really back down. This is a conversation because the context is about abundance. This could be that you are feeling split in two different ways because of a conflict, and it's distracting you from getting more abundance. Or it could be that there are two ways of thinking and you're not sure which school of thought is better for me. Is it this older way? Is it this newer way? Which one is wiser? I can't really tell. Or it could be that other people around you are trying to tell you, I think you should do this. No, I think you should do that. And then that's also really exhausting too, because you're like, I just need to make a decision. Going back to the decision card, the 7 of Cups, and you're like, all of you are giving me too many thoughts and ideas. Please leave me alone. Like, there's a lot happening with these two cards. Do you have a sense of which way these cards, like which scenario that I painted feels right with these two cards? Is it representative of a debate you're having with somebody? Is it people talking to you and sharing too many ideas, or is it just like something else altogether?
I think it's more so other people asking my opinion on different situations. Some
Okay.
like two people having a situation and asking my opinion on it,
Yeah.
and then others, there is this request of my opinion or advice from a few different
Okay.
people. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Because the swords represents communication. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why it's like, because of all that, it's not that it's a distraction where it's all bad, but it's just like, because it's so distracting, then you can never focus, right? Like, how can you move forward on what you need to prioritize in your life? So just remember that, like, all that talk will prevent you from walking the walk, not because you're not capable of walking or talking while walking, but it's just a little bit of, but you could probably get there 2 times faster if you reduce some of that conversation, or if you drew limitations and boundaries around how the rules of engagement, of how people can engage with you or how they can seek your counsel. And the thing is, it's kind of tough, because the reason why they come to you, they are already royalty, the Knight and the Queen of Swords, but you're the Emperor, so you're the one they look up to. You're the one that they look to for answers, because you're the ruler. You're the one with the power, with the wisdom, and they really revere you and what you have to do and say. So this is where it's a little complicated and a little tough. But ultimately, I think when I'm looking at all these cards, I think you're going to be fine. If anything, it's because they're asking you to be overly generous. I think, now that if I tie it together, with your emotional resources and your internal, like your ability, your time, right? Like time is a resource too, right? And so this is where, remember to not just be generous with everybody else, you have to be generous with yourself. I always say you have one hand for holding and receiving, and one hand for giving. And you need to use both of those hands. Keep enough in your own hand, give enough out. You don't want to keep it all, but you also have to be open enough to receive other things too, right? And so it's like that healthy mix is the best way to go. Never one way only, or the other. I think these people probably have yet to learn that lesson. And that's the other hard part, is that you may be talking and they may be like, what do you mean you want boundaries? What do you mean you can't do this for me anymore? And it may feel very painful, but you have to draw those boundaries because you are the all-knowing one. By the way, to go full circle, the emperor is like the magician that we talked about. The emperor represents all four kings. It happens to be the wand, the sun, the wand, the sword, the pentacles, and the cups. So those four elements, the emperor represents all four together. So this is why no matter where in all the cards you show up like that, the one who is already, when I say the king of all kings, that means he specializes in all four of those things, and he knows, and he's stronger than all those other kings where each of them only has one specialty. I'm only the king of wands, I'm only the king of swords, king of all kings, because he can do all four, right? And so those people may only be, right now they're showing up in the suit of swords, so maybe they only have one strength, which is more in the swords family of intuition, speaking, and writing, and communication, and more like that, like spiritual side, but they don't have the rest, but you do. And so that's why it may be hard for them. And like, so they respect you because you're very capable, but then it's hard because when you're speaking to them, it's like you can speak all 5 love languages, but they only have one, and so the moment you try to show them love in a different love language, they're like, don't do that, that's not love. And you're like, yes, it is. But they're like, no, I only know one way. So I'm kind of overextending now, but
Yeah.
hopefully you understand the point of what I'm saying. And this may not be related to love, it may not be related to family. I mentioned family a lot earlier when I was doing these cards, but it all applies: work, life, friends, etc. Don't be too giving. I think that's one of the biggest things. If you're too giving, then all that abundance that you are getting, you're not keeping any. And obviously, you, like I said, you don't want to just hoard it like this and say, I'm never giving it away ever. But you also don't want to just give and give and give and deplete yourself of all your resources that you have earned fairly so on your own. Questions, comments?
I think this resonates, everything you said
Okay.
resonates a lot, actually. And
Okay.
need
Yeah.
almost like some relief a little bit too. I think
Oh, okay.
around where
Yeah.
you were also talking about, like, you don't have to have all the answers right now, or that you don't have to learn everything right now. I think that kind of relieved a little bit for me, because I do
Yeah.
feel this urgency to kind of like catch up. But I think what I received was that I'm not behind. You know what I mean? This is just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I, learned something new, but it's not a deficit necessarily. And then a lot about, I think a lot came up around boundaries, maybe for me, about the ones that
Yeah.
I said that I don't stand with when they're broken, but also acknowledging that a lot of that is a me thing more so than a other person thing. So trying to kind of sit with that and figure out like what to do in a way that still feels good to me.
Yeah.
Boundaries have always been difficult. So,
Your
but
Cancer sign. Cancer
yeah,
signs are like, give, give,
yeah,
give, right? Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate this, Pim. This was really was great, and I feel like the timing couldn't have been more perfect, and I was
Oh,
able to receive it all in a way that I think aligns really well. So I really appreciate
okay.
doing this.
Thank you. My final thing that I will tell you is I almost feel apologetic because I feel like the last reading or the last two, it was kind of like what you had said earlier, where it's like, it didn't give you a direct answer to your question, but it told you probably more of what you actually needed to hear in your heart or in your soul. So I'm sorry if it didn't, hit the spot exactly, but I did feel energetically that this is what the cards really wanted to tell you. And even as you're talking and validating and confirming that this was probably what you needed to hear the most. I will tell you this, what I didn't see in a good way were cards about sabotage or like especially external internal blockers, external sabotage with abundance. So a lot of this is more about saying, like, if you continue to do the soul work, there's nothing that should be stopping you. And there's no sign right now, no caution sign that's saying, like, Lindsay, a lot of people are out to get you, or, like, bad things are going to happen. Like, we saw that tower card, but it was not done in a bad way. So, like, in a different reading altogether, not even in this reading, right? So that's why I'm like, there's no fallout. There's no, nothing coming through in the cards necessarily that tells me that. So that's why I'm like, I'm also not necessarily worried, even if we didn't see a very clear reading about abundance. We didn't see anything about scarcity, pain, trauma, etc. when it comes to abundance. So that indirect answer of the cards not talking about it tells me you'll probably be fine. And that's why so much of this is more dependent just on, are you being good to yourself and that kind of stuff. And that's what the cards think is more important for you to know. And to make sure that you don't stand in your own way of progress, or that you don't allow other people to stand in your way of getting this abundance and inviting abundance to come into your life. So yeah, thank you for letting me read for you. It seems like I can feel, right, like the appreciation through you and the screen, right? But I can also feel the sense of closure inside of you. So I feel like I'm like, all right, this is a good place to end. It feels good and natural. So I'm going to officially stop the recording and then just talk to you for a little bit longer, just in case there's anything else you want to say off the record. But thank you so much for your time and your presence, and just allowing the cards to speak to you.
Thank you so much, Pam. This was great.
Yeah, thank you.